In this video we are going to do another CompTIA Plus Core 1 practice test. But if you are interested in more practice tests, I will leave a link to my Udemy course where you can take 1200 practice tests for CompTIA Plus Core 1 and CompTIA Plus Core 2 exams. So if you are interested for yourself to do these tests for yourself, visit SkillTest Pro. And like I mentioned all the time, guys, if you want to pass this CompTIA Plus Core 1 test, do as many of these practice tests as you can. And probably you have already researched YouTube and you have watched many YouTubers and you have watched many people who already have passed CompTIA practice tests, whether it's A plus or whether it's network, whether it's security plus. You hear all the time the same thing: do these practice tests as many as you can, because when you are doing a practice test you are actually learning, similar as I am doing right now. I will be just showcasing you and not wasting your time and going over these practice tests on SkillTest Pro. But in real life, when you are doing them, you are getting used to real exam. So no further ado, guys, let's get into it and let's start this practice test. And first question is: a user reports that their external USB drive is not working after plugging it into a new USB hub. Other devices work fine in the same hub. What should they check first? When you read this type of question, for example, a user reports that their external USB drive is not working after plugging it into a new USB hub, you should start thinking what could be the problem. And here the problem could be with something to do with USB, because we are plugging in their external USB drive, so we are using a USB drive, and we are using a USB hub. These are two first things which you should consider. And always, like I'm mentioning in all my practice tests whenever I'm doing them here on this channel, guys, always try to understand the question before you approach the answers, because if you don't understand the question and you start reading the answers, you can just create more chaos in your head, and this is exactly what will happen in real exam. You will read the question just automatically and fast, even without understanding it, and then you will start going over answers. You will read all answers and you will have a big chaos in your head. So read question, understand the question, and only then approach the answers. And this is the best way to approach these practice tests. Otherwise, you will have to waste more time on the same question, because if you will not understand the question, you will read the question, you will read the answers, you will have chaos in your head, and then you will go back in your real exam and will start reading the question again. And this will just extend the time for one question. So this is just to you guys from my personal experience, as I have passed many of these exams for CompTIA and many other certifications. So here the answer options are: replace the graphics card, ensure the hub provides enough power, increase the RAM, change the wallpaper, or update Microsoft Word. And here the correct answer is: ensure the hub provides enough power. And in further answers and in further questions, I will not be interrupting you anymore. As always in my videos, guys, I will be just reading questions, and then we will go over the answer options and then correct answer explanation. And here, ensure the hub provides enough power is the correct answer, as some USB hubs do not provide enough power for high power devices like external hard drives. For example, if you would be connecting external SSD drive or external HDD drive, in some scenarios USB hubs might not have enough power to support it, and that's why it wouldn't work, and that's why you should ensure the hub provides enough power. A user reports that their wired network connection is slow. Other users on the same network do not have issues. What is the most likely cause? Here again, a user reports that their wired network connection, so we have a wired, pay attention to all details, so this is a wired, so using RJ45 connectors, we are using cut cables, network connection to ensures this network connection, and this for some reason is slow. So that is the main issue here in this question. Other users on the same network do not have the issue, so they don't have an issue. However, they are also using the same network. And what is the most likely cause in this scenario? Failed CPU or central processing unit, or in other words processor, which could be failed, corrupt sound driver, low printer ink, high screen brightness, or faulty Ethernet cable. Here, if we go over, we again see that we have the problem with network connection, which is slow. So failed CPU would have nothing to do with it, because CPU has nothing to do with the network or network connection or network speed. CPU could be in fault when, for example, your system would be working very slow, or your system wouldn't be functioning as it's supposed to. But if your system is working, if you are able to browse the files, if you are open the folders, everything works fine. But when you browse the internet, the network connection is very slow. Or for example, if you use some network speed tester software to check the network speed and it is slow, and you see that this is only to do with network. So CPU has nothing to do with it. Corrupted sound driver also has nothing to do with network connection. Low printer ink, this is totally out of the range, so also has nothing to do with network connection. High screen brightness, also this has nothing to do with network connection, because network connection doesn't infect or doesn't apply to screen in no way, as that is just a physical part of your computer system. And faulty Ethernet cable. So in my scenario, or I would say that this is the most correct answer, faulty Ethernet cable. A damaged Ethernet cable can cause connectivity issues, including slow speeds. So we understand that in this scenario network connection is slow because there might be some problems with Ethernet cable. For example, the RJ connectors could be not properly connected to Ethernet cable, or the cable could be damaged itself, or there might be many other issues with that cable. And next question, a technician installs a new GPU or graphical processing unit or graphics card in a desktop PC, but the system does not recognize it. What should they check first? So a technician installs GPU in desktop, but the system does not recognize it. What should they check first? Ensure the GPU is properly seated, replace the hard drive, check for malware, defragment the SSD, or update the Wi-Fi driver. And here the correct answer, as it comes with GPU, replace the hard drive has nothing to do with graphics card, check for malware also has nothing to do with graphics card, and defragment the SSD also is to do with memory, not with graphics card, and update Wi-Fi driver also has nothing to do with graphics card. So the correct and only correct answer here would be ensure the GPU is properly seated on the motherboard. So if a GPU is not fully seated in its slot, the system may not detect it. A technician is troubleshooting a computer that fails to boot and shows a no boot device found error. What is the most likely cause? Overheating CPU, faulty GPU, and by the way, for CompTIA Plus exam you should also already know what is CPUs, what are GPUs, and all these shortcuts for these devices which are making up your computer system. Unplugged monitor, disconnected or failed hard drive, or incorrect wallpaper settings. So a technician is troubleshooting a computer that fails to boot. So the computer is failing to boot and shows an error. So what could be the correct answer here? And here the correct answer is that the hard drive, disconnected or failed hard drive. So the hard drive could be disconnected, for example, for some reason. The connection of the hard drive was disconnected or something happened, or it had failed, because in general your computer, everything what is to do with your computer, with your files, with your operating system, is stored in hard drive, and this is the correct memory. This error usually indicates that the system cannot detect the boot drive. And next question. A laptop's display is very dim even at full brightness. External monitors work fine. What should the technician check first? RAM failure, backlight failure, network adapter, speakers, or USB port. And here, if the laptop's display is very dim, then this most likely is to do with backlight failure, as a dim screen that does not respond to the brightness adjustments may indicate a failing backlight. A user reports that their external hard drive is not showing up in Windows File Explorer, but it is listed in Device Manager. What is the best next step? Update the printer driver, assign a drive letter in disk management, lower the screen brightness, run a Windows update, or replace the sound card. And here the correct answer is assign drive letter in disk management, as if a drive does not have an assigned letter, it may not appear in a file explorer. And this is also what you should understand, that if you, for example, have created a drive but you haven't assigned it a letter like C or D or whatever letter you would want to choose, then it would not appear in a file explorer. A laptop's touchpad is unresponsive. The external mouse works fine. What should the technician do first? Replace the CPU, reinstall the operating system, enable the touchpad in system settings, increase screen brightness, or disconnect the Wi-Fi, which would be the correct answer here. And here the correct answer is enable the touchpad in system settings, as many laptops allow users to disable the touchpad accidentally, requiring it to be enabled in settings. A technician replaces the power supply, but now the PC does not turn on. What is the first thing they should check? So, a technician replaced the power supply, but the PC now is not turning on. What is the first thing they should check? Ensure all power cables are properly connected, replace the hard drive, reinstall the operating system, check the firewall settings, or increase the RAM size. And here the correct answer, if it is to do with power, then we should ensure all power cables are properly connected, as we were dealing with power supply, as loose power cables can prevent the system from powering on. A user's keyboard is typing incorrect characters, cap locks is off, and the keyboard is clean. What should the technician check next? Keyboard layout settings, faulty GPU, low printer ink, damaged CPU, or screen resolution. And here the correct answer is keyboard layout settings, as an incorrect keyboard layout setting can cause keystrokes to be mapped incorrectly. And by the way guys, I find that SkillTest Pro is one of the best websites out there for taking these tests, as their questions are very similar to real exam questions. And by the way, there are many different exams or many different certification preparation tests here on this website. So next question. A user complains that their smartphone is charging very slowly. They are using an original charger. So they are using an original charger, but the smartphone is still charging very slowly. What should they check first? The screen brightness, the charging cable for damage, the Wi-Fi connection, the Bluetooth settings, or the phone's wallpaper. And the correct answer is the charging cable for damage, Another reason, what could be in many cases, is also you should check for debris if that would be the answer option. For example, charging port could have some debris in it, which could also slow the charging, or would make the charging impossible in many charging also impossible in many scenarios. But from these answers we can see the charging cable for damage. That could be the most likely answer here. So the damaged or fried charging cable can significantly reduce charging speed. A desktop computer shuts down randomly after 10 to 15 minutes of use. So we are using a desktop computer, and for some reason 10-15 minutes passes once we power it on, but it is shutting down. The technician notices that the internet fans are spinning loudly. So this is what we are noticing, what effect we are hearing from the computers, and fans are spinning loudly. So what would we start thinking about? Why would fans or fan or cooling system start working so powerfully? Why would it need to do it? What is the most likely cause? And now once we understand the question, what it is asking, so our PC is shutting down every 10-15 minutes after we have switched it on, and fans are spinning loudly for some reason to this computer. So what could be the correct answer from these? Overheating, faulty GPU, outdated BIOS, damaged Ethernet port, or low battery. So here low battery we can throw away straight away, because low battery has nothing to do with internal fans. And when you are reading a question, pay attention to what clues that question is giving you in real exam. For example, if it is telling you that internal fans are spinning loudly, that part is not there for no reason. That part is in that question for a reason, so you should pay attention to that part. So if we see now low battery answer, we understand that it is in no way related to spinning for internal fans speeding fast, or anything to do with cooling system. So here we start thinking about cooling system, which could be the problem, and why would the computer switch off after 10-15 minutes once we are using it. So here the most logical answer would be overheating, because when your computer is overheating, which takes about 10-15 minutes once you power your computer on, by the effect which is happening, which is internal fans are speeding loudly, this means that the fans are trying to cool the system, but it is not able to do it, so we are having overheating effect, and that is what turns or switches our computer off. And next question, a user reports that their printer is printing gibberish instead of readable text. What is the most likely cause? Low toner level. So here you should also study carefully for this CompTIA Plus Core 1 exam. Printer, troubleshooting of printer, you should know everything about it, because you will have questions on printers 100%. Especially you should know everything about laser printer, about 7 steps, and everything about troubleshooting of laser printers and all these side effects of printing, what could happen when you are printing by using a laser printer. And here we see that the user reports that their printer is printing gibberish instead of readable text. What is the most likely cause? Low toner level, paper jam, corrupt printer driver, incorrect network password, or overheating CPU. Again, overheating CPU has nothing to do with printer. You straight away eliminate those answers which are 100% nothing to do with what you are looking at. So CPU, nothing to do with printer, as user reports that printer is working. Only problem is here that is printing gibberish instead of readable text. And what is the most likely cause in this scenario? And in this scenario, the correct answer is that this is corrupt printer driver. So remember for your exam, if you are seeing that printer is printing something gibberish or something what shouldn't be there instead of what you are intended to print or the text which you would want to see, then that is corrupt printer driver. As a corrupt printer or as a corrupt or incompatible printer driver can cause incorrect or unreadable print output. A user connects a new external monitor, but it only displays a blank screen. The monitor is powered on and the cable is securely connected. So user have securely connected a monitor, made sure that it is connected to the computer. What should the technician do next? So what should the technician do if the monitor is displaying blank screen? That is the problem here. However, we have done everything. We have connected this screen to the computer. Replace the motherboard, reinstall the operating system, and whenever you are seeing the replace the motherboard, this is pretty much replace all your computer. This would never be, almost never, in 99% of cases I would say this would never ever be the correct answer, because the motherboard is the most expensive part, and when you are replacing motherboard it is easier to build in pretty much a new computer, start a new computer or create a computer system from scratch rather than replacing it on some already existing system. Reinstall the operating system, check display settings, reset the BIOS or disable the firewall. So which one would be the correct answer here? And here the correct answer, as it has to do or is to do with display, as it is showing a blank screen, we should check display settings. Most logical and to the point, as display might need to be manually configured as an extended or mirrored display in the system settings. And next question, a laptop's battery is draining quickly and not holding a charge. So the problem, battery is draining quickly for some reason and it is not holding a charge. The user states that the laptop is less than a year old. What should the technician check first? Thermal paste. Again, this is to do with cooling. Think logically, thermal paste would be to do with cooling of the computer system and nothing to do with battery or its drainage or its holding a charge, guys. Power settings. So what are power settings on computer? This is most likely. Hard drive health. Again, nothing to do with holding a charge, as hard drive is memory, pretty much where we are storing our information of our computer. So also would have nothing to do with it. USB drivers. So how can USB driver? Also, this is only USB hub, which could be out there, which could have some relation to, but just to USBs, but nothing to do with battery holding power or network adapter. Also, NIC cards has nothing to do with this or with batteries holding power, as they are working with network or providing network to our computer systems or allowing to connect our computer to some wire or to Wi-Fi to connect to internet. So what would be the correct answer here? And here the correct answer is power settings, as we already discovered while we were thinking through these questions. As misconfigured power settings, which you can configure on your computer in your settings, you can make your computer to work very efficiently, or if you set your operating system like Windows 10 or Windows 11 to work in black and white mode, that would save more power. So misconfigured power settings can cause excessive battery drain, especially in high performance mode especially if high performance mode is enabled. A technician hears loud clicking noises from a user's hard drive. So we are hearing loud noises from a user's hard drive. The computer is still running, but files are loading very slowly. What is the best course of action? Defragment the drive, backup data immediately, increase virtual memory, disable antivirus software, or reinstall the operating system. And in all scenarios, when it comes to your data, whether you are building websites, if you are a web developer, or whether you are dealing with computers, always first step is back up data immediately. Whenever you hear something is wrong with your system, if your data is not automatically being backed up, and if there is very important information which you need the very least information, first thing you always think about backing up data. So if you have in your mind the smallest doubt that your computer might crash or something might happen with your memory or with your hard drive, straight away you back up your data, as clicking noises from a hard drive indicate imminent failure. So backing up data is the top priority. And when you are hearing like clicking noises, this means that this computer, which we are talking here in this scenario, this most likely is using a hard disk drive, because this is the only memory which is using still moving parts. If you would be using, for example, SSDs or solid state drives to store data on this computer, you wouldn't hear any noises. So just keep in mind that whenever you are talking about clicking noises on computers, there could be only two problems with clicking noises on your computer. One is fans and another one is hard disk drive. No other things which you would hear from the computer which would make clicking or grinding or noises like that. So whenever you hear it, look at the answers. There could be only, like I mentioned, whether it's fans or whether it's hard disk drives. Next, a user reports that they cannot access the internet. So we cannot access the internet, but other devices on the same network work fine. The Ethernet cable is plugged in. What should the technician check first? So we are not able to access internet, other devices are able to work, are able to access, and our Ethernet cable is plugged in. So what should the technician check first? So what we should check first in this scenario, replace the power supply. Also, when you read, think straight away whether it's to do with the problem, and we know the problem here is internet, as we can't, as you can see, a user reports they cannot access the internet. So the problem is, you can even highlight it, access the internet. So replace the power supply. How it is to do with internet? Answer yourself. Reinstall the graphics driver. How it is to do with internet? Check the IP configuration. So always refer back to the problem you are solving, whether it has anything to do with the answer option. Cannot access the internet, check the IP configuration, adjust the screen resolution, how screen resolution is related to the internet access. Replace the printer cable, how it is related to access the internet. So here we straight away understand that the correct answer is check the IP configuration, that as this answer is directly related to the internet. As you know for yourself, as in networking, devices, to make devices or to enable devices to communicate with each other, they need IP or internet protocol configuration, which can be provided by DHCP or which can be set up statically by yourself on the devices which you are connecting on the same network. So as misconfigured IP address can prevent a device from connecting to the internet even if the network is working. And when we are connecting to the internet, we are using gateway address. As gateway address, or all devices on the same local area network or LAN, they are using only one gateway address to access the internet, and gateway address is always or usually assigned to your router, which is routing you out to the internet from your local area network. So next question. A technician replaces a user's RAM module, so we are replacing a RAM, but after installation, the PC will not boot and give a series of beeps. What should they check first? Replace the CPU, think about the problem. Technician replaces RAM, but after installation, PC will not boot and give a series of beeps. So PC pretty much doesn't see that RAM. So now we see the problem that we have replaced the RAM, but PC doesn't see that RAM. Okay, so now we read options, replace the CPU. How it is to do with our problem? In no way, because CPU has nothing to do with RAM. Reset the RAM, most likely. Update the BIOS, nothing to do. Reinstall the operating system. So also, how it is to do with RAM? Not really, as this would be reinstalling the operating system, as operating system is always stored on your SSD or HDD, solid state drive or hard disk drive, so also would have nothing to do with our problem. Adjust power settings. Also, power, nothing to do with RAM. So this would, in my scenario, I would say that this reset the RAM would be the most common problem in this case. So I would check this. Improperly seated RAM, as you can see, reset the RAM. Actually, sorry, I was mentioning reset, but this is reset. This means you take it out, you put it back in, because it might not be properly pushed in, because when you are adding a RAM to your motherboard, you should hear a click. If you don't hear a click, in many cases, you just don't seat it properly. You don't push it in properly, and you don't hear that click. And this means that motherboard doesn't even see that RAM module which you have added to it. So improperly seated RAM can prevent the system from booting and cause beep codes. And next question, a user complains that their Wi-Fi connection frequently drops when using a microwave. So here we have some Wi-Fi problem. And here as well, like I mentioned earlier, everything what is mentioned in the question is mentioned there for a reason. And here for a reason is mentioned using or when using a microwave. So microwave is somehow to do with Wi-Fi connection. It's not like using a Wi-Fi connection, but it is interfering with your Wi-Fi connection. What is likely cause? And if you are new to IT, you might not know it, but in future you will know it by heart, like that microwaves can also interfere with your Wi-Fi connection. A damaged Ethernet cable, a failed network adapter, incorrect DNS settings, interference from the microwave, and here is the problem. A faulty hard drive. Straight away, when you understand the problem, you are reading through, you are trying to compare the answer option to the problem which is there, and which is the cause of the problem, which is not meant there for no reason, and you find the answer when you are reading through interference from the microwave. So let's click it, and this is correct answer, as microwaves operate on the 2.4 GHz frequency. And this is also something what you should know. And when you would be installing in like real network, for example, some networks or IoT devices, Internet of Things devices, you would be separating them off, protect your connections from these interferences, as you see, which can interfere with Wi-Fi networks using the same band, as most bands are 2.4. However, now we are already using 6 GHz bands and 5 GHz bands and so on and so forth. This is to do with networking standards or Wi-Fi standards, which you should also know for this exam. A laptop is running significantly slower than usual. The task manager shows high CPU usage, so laptop is running significantly slower. So first problem here is that laptop is slow. Try to make it in 2 words. Laptop is slow. The task manager shows high CPU usage. So laptop is slow, and for some reason we have high CPU usage, but no applications are open. However, so laptop is slow, we have high processor usage. For some reason processor is working like crazy, but we are not using anything. We haven't opened the browser, we haven't opened any applications, but our computer is actually working very powerfully. For some reason it is processing some data, but we are not doing anything. What is the most likely cause? Faulty GPU or faulty graphics processing card or faulty graphics card, low Wi-Fi signal, Also nothing to do with processing, straight away think about the problem and about answer option. Malware infection, most likely. Outdated audio driver, also nothing to do with CPU, how audio driver could affect our CPU usage, or loose RAM module. Also RAM, nothing to do with CPU, even especially if it is loose. If it would be loose, then it's even better. It is the computer system would use even less resources. So here the correct answer is malware infection. For example, someone might mine or install some malware which is mining Bitcoin on your computer, but you are not seeing it, but processor is working very hard or your computer is working hard to mine that Bitcoin, and Bitcoin mining requires a lot of hash power. So CPU or processing power. Malware can cause high CPU usage by running background processes without user awareness. A user reports that their desktop computer is powering on, but there is no display on the monitor. The monitor is plugged in and powered on. What should the technician check first? Loose video cable, faulty power supply, failed hard drive, incorrect screen resolution, or outdated printer driver. And here, what is the correct answer? Now I will not be telling you anything. Go through the question, understand the problem, make sure that you see anything what else is mentioned in the question, and then once you do that, read slowly through answer options and compare each answer options to the problem which is you are solving in that particular question. And once you get it, you will see that here the correct answer is loose video cable, as loose video cable can prevent the monitor from displaying anything, even if the computer is powered on. So yes guys, this was another test. Here I made it a little bit bigger. I don't know whether you like it in this format. As usually I'm going over only questions and answer options and just reading you explanation. Let me know in comments whether you like it better in this format or when I'm going in more depth on all explanations, or as I was doing in my previous videos. So yes guys, if you found this video useful, leave a like, share this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and see you in the next one.